Hi, you're listening to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com. I am the host, Flux, and on this show I'm joined by Azzure.
Hello,
He is our D3 economy expert dude,
that I am.
and General Gadfly on Malcontent. And we'll be
Yes.
proving that shortly. We're going to talk a little bit we're going to get into the D3 economy stuff, obviously, with the real money auction house enabled in the beta test lately. I'm sure you'll have some brilliant insights on that, Azzure, so no pressure. And
I'll
before
try.
that, we're before that, we're going to talk about a little bit of recent news and some Diablo 3 beta play stuff, since we are both lucky enough to be beta testing, and a little bit of comparisons of Diablo 2. You've been testing for a couple of months, yes?
Yes, many months. 3 months, I think, now.
And are you still enjoying it?
Look, the game itself is good. There's just kind of no point in playing it because the amount of content's so limited. So you don't really need to play it more than a few playthroughs, I think. It's quite repetitive. It's a bit like if you imagine, playing Diablo 2, if you play, up to the Stony Field over and over and over and over again, it kind of gets boring.
Yeah, we've had this whole discussion about how the Diablo 3 beta is especially easy as well. The developers keep insisting it's supposed to be easy and it's the beginning, the tutorial, etc.
And then they increase the difficulty
Yeah, and then
patch.
every patch makes it harder. So,
Yeah.
have you noticed it being more difficult in the current patch?
Oh, definitely. They increased difficulty. They first increased the difficulty in patch 5, I think it was.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was
and
that long-awaited patch that did a bunch of big
yeah,
changes.
and that basically, I don't know, double or tripled the HP of most monsters, and it also increased the pack size of a lot of the monsters in the world. It was still very easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, especially after you start to get better weapons, because your DPS just exponentially increases for some reason. It
Yeah, you really
doesn't.
notice it at the start. You're doing like
Yeah,
2 or 3 damage per hit with those little crappy starting weapons, and then as soon as you get anything blue in your
yeah,
hand, like wham.
yeah, and you get a little bit of plus attack stats, and it just literally like triples your DPS. And some of the crafted stuff adds like 20 something to attack each item, so it's really scales up.
Yeah, I've made many, many characters in the beta, and I have never twinked any of them initially. I mean, until like level 8 or 9 at least,
Mm.
because it's just so easy if you do any. I mean,
Yeah,
you give them like a pair of gloves with plus 10 attack, and it's like you're
yeah.
tripling your damage, like you just said.
Yeah, and I was actually purposely attacking with fists. Like I was taking my items off because it was too easy. So it's not as fun when you just sort of run around and you just one shot everything. So I literally started taking off some gear and I basically hit things with my fist. Um, and that way monsters would at least last, maybe one or two more hits. And it just was more fun, I found, than when it was harder.
The funny thing is, you punch much more slowly than you swing.
Yeah,
Even with you're not using these huge IIS weapons. You're just using like regular junky equipment. But
yeah,
I've done that with a barbarian because he's just so damaging.
yeah.
Everything dies in one hit once you have any kind of decent equipment.
Mm.
And then I'm going with barehanded, and he's punching at like super slow motion. It's like, dude, you're carrying a 20-pound club. Now you're barehanded, and you can't punch any faster than that.
Exactly, it's a bit funny, but yeah, I think it's like I don't think any weapons at all are slower than the fist. I think the fists are slower than the most heavy weapons.
And there's not really any increased attack speed modifiers this early in the game.
And
I mean,
if there was, they're like 3% or something.
yeah, maybe later on we'll have like IIS on gloves and hats and belts and everything, and then you could actually punch pretty quickly. But of
Yeah,
course, except for the monk. Of course, then the monk actually does nothing but punch, no matter what you've equipped on your weapons.
yeah.
It's kind of weird.
I find that I don't know if that's intentional, but it gets a bit. I don't know. It makes it feel like the weapons aren't very meaningful for the monk. Like no matter what you do, he's going to use his fists virtually for everything. And then if not using his fists, he's going to use his legs. So you never really see the weapon. It's just sort of, he's just got it in his belt pouch, just sitting there the whole time.
Yeah, it's on his backpack. He's this huge sword on his backpack. Yet your damage goes up. I mean, it's not like they have an effect, obviously, but it just seems weird.
Yeah,
It
I'm
reminds me a
surprised.
little of the druid in D2.
Yeah,
Like when you become a werewolf or a werebear, and suddenly you're just using, your claws.
yeah, that's
But at
true.
least then you could pretend you were using a weapon. You just couldn't see it.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't, I guess, increase at least some of the abilities that does show the weapon. So, I mean, they could have changed the graphics for, some of the combo moves. They could have at least integrated the weapon in the animation. Like, I don't know, instead of punching, he might, I don't know, swing the sword like in a certain way with electric coming out of it or whatever, like for that charged fist ability. So I'm surprised they didn't at least have some abilities that use the weapons.
My theory on the monk is that during the development they had very limited weapons he was allowed to use. They
Yeah,
would say like no swords, no clubs, no two-handed anythings except for
yeah,
the
I remember
staff,
that.
etc.
Yeah,
And then they've gradually added more and more stuff in, and I kind of wonder if they did all the animations,
yeah, before
initially.
that, yeah. I think that's probably how it came to pass.
Yes, because as we know, they never go back and rework anything in Diablo 3, and they never delay the release because they want to redo things.
Yeah.
Oh wait, yes they do. It,
Well,
it
look,
seems odd this is something they wouldn't go back and redo some of.
yeah, the they seem to, I don't know, with Blizzard in general, art doesn't get changed too much. I mean, they obviously improve the engine and add lighting effects and all that stuff, but they don't typically change art that much, especially for something like the Monk stuff, where pretty much all his abilities are based on the fact that he's a brawler and using his fists. They don't seem to go back and revisit that sort of stuff. It's usually final, and they may maybe just change a few colors, and that's about it.
Speaking of graphics and animations and such, you were saying you kept insisting that the graphics looked much better in the new patch. Are you still holding to that?
I don't know. Look, I don't know. I honestly, what happened is I logged in when the latest patch came out, and for some reason, the game looked better than I remembered, and it's probably in my head. This wasn't the anti-aliasing patch. The anti-aliasing patch was the one before. But I honestly think what I think it is I think they've done two things. One, they've changed the lighting effects very slightly, and secondly, I think they've improved the anti-aliasing hugely because I remember when in patch 5 when they introduced anti-aliasing, there was still, if you zoomed in, it was still not smooth. It was a little bit there wasn't as much jaggies, but it just wasn't as sharp as it is now. And I think right now it's really, really sharp. Like you can zoom in and you don't see any jagged edges at all or anything close to jagged edges. So I don't know if it could be my imagination because I did check the forums and I couldn't see anybody who was saying that they noticed any graphic changes, but I don't know. I really felt like it looked a lot better than I remember. Who
What kind
knows?
of system are you running the beta on?
Oh, it's a pretty good system. It's a 9 950 with a good graphics card, like it's ATI 6 series graphics
So
card.
you're like way above minimum specs. I mean, you're
Yeah,
running
yeah,
everything in max.
yeah. I could run it, double max, and I'll still get probably 60 frames. So
So you
it's
went from max to max. It wasn't like you changed your view,
that's
your
right. Yeah,
your settings or anything.
yeah. No, yeah, everything was the same as far as settings go. I think I really think they enhanced the anti-aliasing. I'm pretty sure they did because I do remember when they first put it in, it wasn't as sharp as it is now. So I'm pretty sure that's at least one thing they've done in patch 6. But I don't know, I found that it was more than that. I just felt like it was much nicer. But it's probably my imagination, I don't know. Maybe I was playing some ugly game like Skyrim or something.
Speaking of playing ugly games, you mentioned you've been playing some Diablo 2 lately, right?
Yeah, I went back when they did the ladder reset. I thought, might be a little bit fun to revisit it.
And I've been playing. I hadn't played Diablo 2 in literally years, since like 2007 or something. I realize I have to quit my job now that I've said this, but I hadn't played it in a long time. I didn't have it. It wasn't even installed on this computer, and just sort of, we've been having this endless debate. Is Diablo 3 continuing it? How is the pacing? How is the difficulty? And I recently played Torchlight 2 and I wrote an article about that saying it was much more difficult and much more, obviously
Yeah,
Torchlight 2 has got features like Diablo 2 with skill points and manual attributes and other such things.
yeah,
And I was just really curious. I went and reinstalled Diablo 2 Classic. I tried to do it with the BattleNet, the digital download,
hmm
and I've long had misgiving. I don't like the whole you're not really buying the game, you're just renting it from Blizzard kind of thing,
yeah,
which is kind of how I feel about not having a physical copy of the DVD. Of course,
yep,
that means nothing with Diablo 3 because you still can't play the damn thing.
exactly.
You get your coaster.
Yeah,
But anyway, of course, digital download didn't work. It's
really?
like, I'm like, yeah, this figures. It would
Oh,
not. I couldn't open. I mean, it downloaded fine, but then I couldn't open the exe. It just kept giving me this weird, like, can't write to RAM settings message or something.
okay, well, that's
And so then
strange.
I went. Then I had to go and dig in some closet, and find my old actual copy of Diablo 2 Collector's Edition, and that worked
Yeah,
fine.
Oh, that's very strange. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, this is a real, I'm really encouraged now for the Diablo 3 digital download. It doesn't work at all on my computer.
Yeah, you might want to pick up a physical copy just in case.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I've been playing it and I've taken a ton of notes on it. I'm going to write some kind of article hopefully this weekend, and
Mhm.
probably this podcast will go up on Monday, and kind of sort of tied to the article a little bit.
Yep.
But just all the different changes in Diablo 2, and especially going back to Diablo 2 Classic. I mean, like I'd forgotten all the stuff that was in Diablo 2 expansion that wasn't in the Classic.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
obviously,
You're playing classic, aren't you?
yeah, just I wanted to actually play version 1.00 just for the hell of it, but it wouldn't work either on my computer. It was
Yeah.
some kind of graphics thing. I had to upgrade to, I think it's 113C or something like that,
Yeah, yeah. Probably
and
to
that works
cater
fine.
for Windows 7 or whatever.
But I mean, just to briefly list a couple things: no weapon switch,
Yep.
no corner map. The only map is that huge, ugly thing that covers the whole middle of the screen.
Yeah, yep.
I was like, oh my god, I always hated this. No wonder.
Yeah, yep. That was one of the things I first noticed too.
There's mercenaries, but you can't put any equipment on them. You can't even give them potions. I'd forgotten how useless they were.
Yeah, absolutely useless back then.
Amusingly, in Act 1, I got my free mercenary and I got an Ellie. I'm like, oh, great. She died immediately, of course.
Funnily enough, that's exactly what happened to me. I got Ellie as well.
Did you
Hit
kill
the
her?
sign. No, this is in LOD, so I actually gave her good gear, and
Oh, that was
was
nice of you.
she was semi useful. Great.
Resolution 640, 480. No
Ooh.
800, 600 option.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, it's like Diablo 1 right there. Like the first 5 minutes of the rogue encampment, I was like, I can't play this. I just, the
Yeah.
pixels are like literally thumbnails. I mean, they are literally thumbnails. You hold your thumb to like a 24-inch monitor. You hold your thumb up to it. Oh, look, there's Warev's head. It
I was
was
gonna say
scary.
you probably fit like what three monsters on screen at any one time.
But that's kind of one of the things that I really noticed about Torchlight 2 was how much faster paced it felt, and much more like Diablo 2. And Diablo 2 Classic is immediately, I mean, once you're past like the Den of Evil, you get into like the second area, past what's her name, Flavie is that one rogue NPC that stands
Yeah.
out there.
Yep.
Like as soon as you get past her, you usually get like a boss pack of corrupted rogues or something.
Yeah.
And
There.
they are so much faster and so much harder than anything in the entire Diablo 3 beta, including the
Yeah.
Skeleton King. I
Yeah.
was just like, damn, I'm kiting them for like across half a level, and
Yeah.
with this puny little boazon I had with no cold damage and no stunning anything.
Yeah. And those big giant what are they called? Those Wookiee type giant bear
Yeah,
things.
the
Yeah.
Wendigo guys. Yeah,
Oh
but at
yeah.
least they're slow though. Of course, you get the fast ones by the
Except you get the
tree.
fast pack. What's that first named boss? Something three wood or something like that.
Tree head, wood
Treehead
tip.
yeah, that's it. That guy's fast. Like he's
Yeah,
always fast, and his minions are like super fast. I always remember he's like the first most the super challenging monster to come by. Apart from Rakanishu, is it the lightning?
Brackety.
Yeah, the lightning enchanted dude. He's
Yeah, he's so
dangerous.
screwy though. You can just kill his friends and he runs off though. But yeah, the LE is not good.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm noticing. You said you played some D2X recently.
Mhm.
And it's just like, do you notice the faster pacing than? I
Yeah.
guess it's not the same if you were twinking or anything, but I was really noticing it just because I had brand new characters that were totally weak. No charms, no cold damage.
Yeah.
I've got like 27 mana at level 9. I can do like two spells and I'm out of mana, and it's like, God,
Yeah.
this is harsh.
Yeah, it's the first thing I notice is the monsters just the difference is most of the pacing difference comes from the actual monsters themselves because they run really fast and they just swarm you and they sort of just go for you straight away. Whereas with the beta at the moment, Diablo 3, it's a bit more controlled. Like you kind of just it works at your pace, not the monster's pace, so you can easily outrun them. You can if things go bad, you can sort of escape. Whereas yeah, in Diablo 2 they're very fast. You basically the way you offset that is by sculling potions, which is probably not that good of a mechanic. But yeah, basically that's why you can see why potions are such a big part of that game.
Yeah, and you can see all these comments that Jay Wilson and others have made about how Diablo 2 was all about potion drinking.
Yeah,
And when they would say that, my memories were of playing D2X with level 90 characters, and I'm like, I haven't drank a potion in 2
yeah.
years.
I've got life leech. I don't
Yeah,
need
I've
to.
got every kind of leech, and you hit a full purple every now and then in an emergency.
Yeah, yeah,
But the early game, and even I've played my highest level character now. My Boazon is like level 40, and she's in I think Act 3 of Nightmare, and I'm still having to use a hell of a lot of mana potions. I mean, I've got
yeah,
like a mana leech ring and like some boots I think that are 2%. There's some unique low level boots,
yeah.
and I am constantly hitting mana pots still,
Yep,
even at
yep.
level 40. So
And that's one of the things that was one of the I guess most barring things when I started playing Diablo 2 was the fact that you have to rely on mana potions for classes that don't have proper mana regen mechanics.
Well, you
You
can just use
use
attack if you want, but
Yeah,
it's not real
that's
effective.
the thing. That's one of the things I found the most, I guess, the biggest barrier to getting into the game was the whole mana mechanics. It made it so difficult. Basically, you need to get like lifesteal on a ring or something before you can even play the game properly. And I found that to be quite annoying. That was one of the biggest turn-offs for the game.
On the other hand, what I've been noticing with the potions is that the game can be so much harder and quicker because they know you're able to heal and drink
Exactly.
more.
Yeah.
It's basically it's a limiting factor on all of your skills, and that you can use a ton of skills and be really powerful. You just got to drink blue potions constantly to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So the tuning in it, I think, is obviously it was created, 10 years ago. The tuning wasn't as state of the art as what we're used to now, where things are more structured and they're a bit more balanced. It was just basically, yeah, you have one extreme or the other. You either have no mana and you're weak, or you've got a bunch of mana potions and you can basically use unlimited amounts of skills that really just tear things up.
Or you're Diablo 3 and you have unlimited mana and don't need mana potions because it's
Exactly.
impossible to run out of resources in the beta.
Pretty much, yeah. And I think that's probably what makes the game look like it's so easy because and that's the intention. I mean, they don't want you to be resource starved and rely on things like mana potions. They always tell us though because it's the beginning of the game, you're supposed to have unlimited mana, and later on is when the regen mechanics kick in and you need to worry about your consumption and stuff like that.
And you won't be able to kill everything with one spell in theory. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Well, if did you watch the during the BlizzCon 2011 panel when they showed that video with the basically testifying how difficult the game is? They had a bunch of QA testers and they showed some video footage of Nightmare in Hell, well, pretty much
in
Hell, I think.
Inferno, they were talking about it. It's like, oh, it's so hard, it's so hard.
Yeah, yeah, and if you look at the I was actually pausing it and really looking deep into that video. You can actually see that one of them's the monk, and the monk is doing literally like 3,000 damage a hit, and he's hitting like you're just seeing numbers flying out, 10 numbers every second because he's obviously fast hitting, and the monster is just a normal pack of bats. And their life was it wasn't moving that much. Like he had to hit him a lot of times to bring it down, and that's just a simple monster. So I think they may have if anything, may have overtuned it because of all the things about difficulty. I think that we'll probably see Inferno being a little bit too hard to begin with, but that's okay because as you get gear, the whole point is gear makes it easier, and you're going to continue getting new gear indefinitely. So content will always get easier and easier as time goes by. It's not like the monsters get any harder. So I think
Well,
it's
they can.
probably
It's all on their server. They can click a button and
yeah,
every monster's 10% harder
yeah.
overnight if they want.
They could, but then that would screw up everybody who just got into Inferno and doesn't have such good gear. So it's one of those things I think will remain static unless there's like, a big outcry of whether it's too hard or too easy. They can probably easily adjust the difficulty quite with their spreadsheet as they've mentioned before. Their monster spreadsheet that they can easily change.
Yeah, I do wonder about them making Inferno kind of a flat difficulty. Like, is it possible that Act 1 can be as hard as Act 4?
Yeah,
And
that's the thing.
would you even want that? Because like you said, people are going to get so much stronger after a couple of months of Inferno. You'll have so much better gear.
Yeah. I think it's not good design to have it completely flat because you got things like monster densities. Like if you look in Act 1 right now, in that first area, obviously there's only maybe 2 zombies per screen, right? It's not like, the end game where there's going to be like, 20 packs of 20 and things like that. So I think having the flat difficulty is going to feel a bit strange because Act 1 has to, just by the feel of it, it should be easy because there's, for one, less density. The monsters, I don't know if they're changing the type of monsters that are found in Act 1 or whatever, but by design, they seem to be easier regardless. So I don't see how they could make them the same level as something in like Act 4.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible to me. I mean, they don't have casting, they don't have, ranged attacks.
Yeah,
There's very little monster variety, etc.
yeah, and, low densities. So I personally think it's probably a bad idea to make it completely flat. I do like the theory of being able to make it so you can go to any act and still have competitive loot drops. That it's a good mechanic, but I think they should at least have some kind of very, very small curve. So Act 1's obviously easier than Act 4 by a pretty, maybe 1 or 2 levels. So I do like the concept, but I don't think it's going to work to have everything on flat difficulty like that. It should be a little bit different. It should be a little bit harder as you go on. slightly.
I would hope they have individual dungeons that are actually harder. I mean, you don't want everything to be the same difficulty. You want this
Exactly, yeah.
place is, you go into the Flayer dungeon or whatever the Diablo 3 version of that will be, and it's like, okay, this has these really nasty wraiths, and they're like, they're immune to lightning and etc. So this is not a good thing for me. It'd
Yeah,
be boring if the whole game was exactly the same.
I totally agree because I think sometimes you just want to do something, you might just want to go somewhere easy and have obviously, the penalties less, less loot drops or worse loot drops. But I like the idea of if you really want to go to somewhere like super hard, you can just decide to go into this, Act 4 dungeon that is just, it's famous for being deadly, like from the community. Everyone says, oh, that place is brutal. Kind of like the Chaos Sanctuary with those Oblivion Knights in Diablo 2. I think that was fun to have that, sense of danger. Like this place is really, really tough. Like don't go in this place unless you're really, really keen on, dying. So I would really like it if they went with something like that. Because I don't, that's the one thing I don't like about flat difficulty. While it gives you all these new areas to play in, fundamentally, if everything's the same difficulty, then what's the point? You've just got different graphics.
And you certainly get that in D2. I've been noticing, you get to Act 3 and it's like, there's like 70 flayers coming at you at once, and it's just like, wow, this is not something I saw in Act 2.
Yeah, and I do like that I do like the idea of having areas that make you have to use different skills or make you have to play a certain way that are sort of themed in that direction. So in Act 3 you've got a lot of those ranged flayers that kind of, and they're a bit more. It's a bit more of a swarming type area, and the very terrain is very strange. Where sometimes there's people on the opposite island attacking you, and you can't attack them back because you're on a different island. I do
Yeah,
like having.
those little blow dart bastards are everywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. You just see all these pellets flying at you. I do like stuff like that where it's you have to adjust your play style to meet that type of area. So I really hope they continue with that type of idea.
It will be interesting to see later stuff in D3. I mean, like I was just looking at all those screenshots that Rising Red posted of all the other areas, the later surface areas in Act 1,
Mm.
which we can look at because they're not randomly generated. There's just a big map and you can explore. That's what it's always going to
Yep.
look like.
Yep.
And it's just like, wow, look at different areas, new areas. There's this whole huge one he posted
Yeah.
a video of where it's like the fallen, you kind of go up this winding path and it's like the goat land. And there's
Mm.
all these huge traps and trees falling over on you and like
Yeah.
walls with spikes. And there's no
Yeah.
monsters
That's
in it
cool.
because the emulators can't run that stuff yet. But it's like this is going to be awesome to go through with goats. It's just
Yeah.
it refreshed my hunger for the full game as I've been very
Me
bored with
too.
the beta
Yeah.
test.
I've that's exactly how I feel because with the beta test, it's kind of strange to look at it because here we are in this game where we literally are looking at a tiny portion of the game, and you get the feeling where you want to play it, but it feels like there's no point because you've already seen it extensively. So it makes you think, oh shit, I can't wait until the real game comes out where we can, see the rest of the game because it's pretty awesome. So it definitely the beta makes the wait a bit harder, I think.
Well, yeah, tell that to everyone else who wants to get it and hasn't gotten in yet. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
I've really noticed just playing D2, it's fun to be able to build up a character and there's a reason. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go gamble for gloves because I'll need them at a later level. Whereas in the beta, it's like you don't need any equipment
yeah,
other than what
exactly.
you find to beat it. Anything you
Exactly.
add on from the
It's
the
just an added,
crafting.
yeah. It's something that I'm really looking forward to in the full game because that's when it actually will make a noticeable difference. At the moment, getting good loot is kind of pointless because you can kill things easy anyway. It just makes it even easier, which kind of, in fact, it makes it a little bit more boring, which is why I've been taking a lot of my gear off when trying to play because it's not as fun when, you've got rapid fire and your demon hunter, which is it's a weak ability because it's so fast, but you're still killing things in one hit. So it gets a bit pathetic. So I'm looking forward to the full game when things like that, little changes in your power are really noticeable.
Speaking of the full game, one of the interesting news things that came up this week with Diablo 3 is that they are simplifying the tooltips. And as I put this to some people I'm talking to, they've nerfed tooltips.
There's 138 comments, I think, on that news post at the moment.
Yeah, and most of them they're actually a fairly wide variety of, they're not all pissed off about it or whatever, but it just, we've had this debate going for, 3.5 years now, and it never ends because they keep announcing more simplifications and more, the whole debate is accessibility versus dumbed down.
Yeah.
Where would you say you fall on the scale of
I,
accessibility versus dumbed down? Where do you
I,
think the game is, and what do you think is good or bad about that?
I think, well, let's start with the tooltips. I mean, when I saw that news piece, I was thinking, hang on, I don't actually recall the tooltips being that complicated at all. You know,
That's because they weren't.
honestly, I just remember it saying something like, spins around, does, X% weapon damage over X seconds, and that's it. Like, I don't see how that's complicated at all. And they even color code the percentages. So basically, it's kind of like saying, look at me, this is the most important figure, this is how much damage it's going to do, or this is what's going to change when you level up. I found it very, very strange that they thought that that's too complicated, because I, for one, do not see that as being complicated at all. I mean, it's not like they had all these technical details about it, does, X amount of damage, depending on weapon speed, depending on blah, blah, blah. It was very straightforward as it was. So I really don't understand why it needs to be simplified in the first place. But I'll hold my opinion until they actually release what they've changed with them. If they've done something like don't even tell you how much weapon damage it does, I think that's going to be utterly pathetic, because you can't even compare abilities if they do that. I mean, just going off the beta abilities, things like rapid fire is a good example. That tells you that it uses, it does 30 something or 60 something % weapon damage per attack, but it increases your attack speed by 6 times or whatever. Now, if that tooltip got changed to something like rapidly fires for less damage, then that's really shitty, because you don't even know what it's going to actually do. You don't know what the disadvantage of it is. So I think that would be an absolute, that would be pathetic if they did that. Just silly. You wouldn't even be able to compare abilities with each other. But on the
Maybe they
biggest
can just
scale,
have colors, like green to red, like it's a slider or something.
yeah,
It's like a free school. It's like computers for little children. They just have like one
yeah.
big button and like colors and stuff. Because
Yeah.
numbers and math is like hard.
I really, that has me baffled, because I don't understand what was so complicated about the original tooltips. Again, if anything, I thought they probably could have added a bit more detail, but I thought I thought they were good as they were.
And it's funny because we have this enormously expanded character window now that shows like everything, and numbers and stats and
Yeah,
DPS and swing speed, attacks per second and everything.
yeah, much more than Diablo 2, yeah.
And hopefully it's not all full of lies like Diablo 2 either.
Yeah, I remember that. You couldn't
I've
really
been
trust that. A lot of the things that people say is dumbed down is the skill system. I actually disagree with that. I think the skill system was a necessary change due to the way that they've done runes. I think it wouldn't have worked to have skill points. I totally agree with why they did it, especially after playing the beta. Before the beta came out, I was a bit like, thinking, that's a bit, no skill points just doesn't feel right. But when you play the beta, I think you completely understand why it was done, without a doubt.
How about attribute points?
Here's the thing. At the moment, attribute points don't do that much, because if you look at the Datamined affix list, there's stats that add like plus. I think that the limit's like plus 200 to a certain stat. So I think that if you have 5 points to customize, in the big picture, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I've actually posted an idea of how I think would be a good way of handling it. So how after level 30 to 60 you don't really gain anything,
The
because you've
dead
already,
zone, as they
yeah,
say.
the dead zone, because you've already got all the skills, you've got runes, you've got basically everything's unlocked, all your passives are unlocked, all your slots are unlocked. So I think something that would be a nice touch. I mean, again, it's not big deal, because it's such a small change. But if they allow you to change your attribute points after level 30, or you can always opt in to click, they'll add a button that says auto assign. So if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. You can just click auto assign, and it assigns them appropriate for your class, as per it was doing from levels 1 to 30. But giving you the option, I think, is pretty cool. It allows you to, you might want to have lots of health instead of more crit, or you might want to have more damage. And I think that part of it's pretty fun, where you can have at least some say in how much, you might have 2 barbarians next to each other, same spells or whatever, very similar skills and abilities, but one of them's got 1,000 more HP than the other one. The other one's got more damage. That's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, good luck with that. It's funny because they'd said that one of their excuses when they removed the attributes, the manual attributes, was like, well, we have other systems in the game that'll allow you to customize your characters.
Yep.
And obviously skills and skill runes are a big part of that, and equipment. But of course they were going to have this thing with charms and the talisman.
Yep.
And that was mainly going to be a way to boost your stats. You get a bunch of you get a bunch of charms that all added strength or whatever.
Yep.
And then that system got removed because they couldn't make it do anything more interesting than add stats, and probably it was just taking too long to work on.
Yep.
So that was kind of their excuse why you don't need attributes, because you can do them with this thing, and now this thing is gone. So
Yeah. Look, I think at the moment attributes feel like they're just an automatic part of the game because they are, I guess. But they feel like they're not really not part of your character progression. It just feels like another set of numbers that you just need to look at and itemize for. It doesn't feel like it's actually part of your character class itself. It doesn't feel like a mechanic. So and look, I'm in two frames of mind about that. I think it's obviously good for new players because attributes in RPGs, for people who don't play RPGs, they're kind of daunting, especially ones that, what the hell does spirit do? What the hell does intellect do? So I think that's kind of okay. But on the other hand, I do like having customization in attributes as well as skills. Because at the moment, the only thing you can customize is your use abilities. And that's, that's cool. Like the runes are awesome. I really like the skill system. But sometimes you just want to craft your character to how you want it to be crafted permanently. And I think that's what attributes did well.
I'm really noticing that in D2. It's really hard to get to hit.
Yeah.
I mean, even with my Boazon, who I've put almost every point into dexterity. I mean, just a little bit of strength for, requirements. But,
Yep.
And I'm at like level, I'm up in Act 2 in Nightmare, and I have like 62% to hit to things.
Yeah.
And it's like I've put every damn point into dexterity.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if I had to be at like 50%. I mean, I haven't really put any into the, what is it? I think it's Penetrate is the passive that adds like 10% to hit. I've only got a couple of points in that, but I mean, I'm looking to put some more in later. But you're so much more conscious of how these,
exactly,
the relationships, these things are working.
They no longer are just a simple number. You actually care about.
I've really seriously thought about putting mana into it. I mean, I know that's a total waste, but it's like I'm just always out of mana, and there's no charms, so it's really hard to boost your mana easily.
If I misfire one multi-shot, I'm out of mana, and I can never get my mana back without a potion.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Mm-hmm. But
But you're so conscious of what they do. I mean, like you've said in Diablo 3, I mean, you see a little pop-up when you level, and usually it's more than 5. It's like 2211 or 2221 or something.
Yep.
But you don't really, I mean, maybe somebody is like opening their character window every single level up and saying, okay, that's what that added. But I don't think there's a lot of people who are doing that.
Exactly. Like I said, I think it's become a system where it's just an automated part of your character. You don't even look at it. You don't really care. The only time I've ever opened my character screen and moused over the attributes is when I've crafted an item that has like plus 25 attack because I just want to see how much 25 attack actually adds to my DPS. But
a damn lot.
Yeah, especially at that level, a huge amount. It's crazy. But again, I think they've removed. It's almost like you no longer really need to worry about that side of character customization at all. It's now just completely. You just need to pick your skills, basically. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm a big fan of the actual skill system itself, but having that as the sole way of customizing your character, to me, isn't optimal. I mean, it's probably good enough for a release and all that stuff, but I think a lot of hardcore players won't like that as much.
I think they're just really trying to focus our attention on the items for D3 vanilla or D3V or whatever we're going to call it, and not worry about the other stuff. And then they're probably going to add some more in. They're going to add like. Maybe they'll add attributes to runes, and they'll add charms and other such things in the expansion.
Yeah. I think the expansion one will have a lot of new features, such as I think they'll expand on PvP as well, because it looks like I think they really want to add more to PvP, but they just literally don't have time at the moment.
Yeah, they're on their deadline. They wouldn't want to miss that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want them to miss that.
Yeah, they've already missed 3 of them. Yeah, last year. Okay, so we're moving on to the auction house stuff and the real money trading. Mm-hmm. The last patch enabled real money trading in the auction house in the beta. Everyone in the beta got 50 beta bucks.
Bobby bucks?
No, Bobby. As I've explained, Bobby would not authorize his name on worthless Monopoly money. Real money, maybe, but it's not going to say play money. Bobby don't play.
Imagine they made real money called Bobby Bucks in the retail version. That would be quite funny.
Well, that's what we're going to call him anyway. Let's take a step back briefly there. Just can we get some of the basics for people who haven't been following every little detail?
Yep.
So it's a real money auction house, and there's a listing fee and a selling. They removed the gold auction house in this patch, yes?
Yep, they have.
And everybody got $50 to play with, and people are just sort of experimenting, buying and selling. They just mentioned in a post just today that they're calling it your BattleNet balance is going to be coming on to your
name
pretty soon. That's what, yeah, and that's going to be across all their games, and you can use that. That's real money that's held in your account with BattleNet.
Yep.
and you can use it to buy Blizzard games or to use it in the real money auction house in Diablo 3.
Well, top up your WoW subscriptions, everyone.
Yeah,
Happy
yes.
days.
And I was gonna say there's nothing you buy in WoW, but yes, you can buy your WoW. Have they announced how to do this other than with PayPal? I mean, can you put money into it, I'm assuming with a credit card?
I would imagine so, because you can do that with current Blizzard products. Like you can purchase things obviously with a credit card. I think they will allow that. See, the confusing part comes with if you can top up your BattleNet balance with a credit card, then isn't that kind of the same thing as what PayPal does? And aren't they worried about all the money laundering stuff? But I don't know if that just applies to cash out or not. Um, I think you can though, to be quite honest. I think they'll allow you to make deposits with a credit card.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you'll actually need PayPal to put money into your account in the first place. I mean, you need PayPal to get it out, it seems like. But of course,
Yeah,
they don't have PayPal everywhere in the world.
no, that's right.
There's
And
people
in
like
China,
you really don't have PayPal in Europe at all, from what I've
yeah,
heard.
and in China, PayPal is a huge problem because PayPal fees in China are apparently massive.
Yeah, I think I posted it something. Some
Yeah,
Chinese, one of our Chinese readers told me that. It said it's like 40. It's like more than the transaction itself is
yeah,
the PayPal fee.
and I've bought stuff from China in the past, and they never accept PayPal because of that reason. They really hate PayPal.
Can you send Bashiak a sack of pennies to add to my account? I don't trust credit cards. They're tools of the
Yeah,
devil. It's the
yeah,
mark of the beast. I only use pennies and nickels. And I
yeah.
want to send a big bag of cash to someone at Blizzard to clear to my account.
A
That's too
money
bad I don't
order?
have-
Yeah, no, I doubt that.
That's too bad. They're limiting Luddites from playing with the game.
They're limiting
So
80-year-old retired people from depositing money because
yeah,
they don't
well,
trust the internet.
well, actually, oddly enough, that's their largest focus group for Diablo 3. Actually, is 80-year-old retired people. That explains most of the changes in the game
It
lately,
explains the tooltips.
and everything else. So now that the RMAH, you've been experimenting with the RMAH.
Mhm.
How does it work compared to the gold auction house and to your expectations?
It's been very good. Just before the Real Money Auction House came out, I posted an article on the market site about how I think the fee structure will work, and it was remarkably close to what actually happened. So basically, there are different fee structures depending on which type of item you're selling. So for example, when you're selling gold, it'll have a percent fee rather than a static fee. So say you're selling, say you're selling 1,000 gold for $1 for sorry a Blizzard buck or Beta buck or whatever. Um, Instead of it being the usual 80-cent fee that items incur, it'll be 15% of the sell price. So it'll be 15 cents basically for that dollar transaction. And that's the same for commodities. So basically, if you look at the actual auction house itself, you know how there's different categories. There's gold, there's items, there's crafting and dyes. There's like a bunch of categories. Each of those categories has its own fee structure and its own way of selling and buying. So they've done a very, very smart thing with commodities. They've made it so they're no longer individual listings. So basically, what would have happened? Pretend it's like a WoW auction house. In WoW, you would have literally maybe 10,000 different listings for some kind of material, and basically you'll have the seller name and all that stuff. So you'd search for the item, you'll have like 10,000 results, and you just basically click on each one and buy it individually. What they've done here is they've actually treated it a bit like a commodities market in real life, where they put everything in a pool. So if you've got 10 sellers for, I don't know, 10 common scraps each, that'll make 100 common scraps. And so when you go to buy common scraps, you don't have to look through those individual listings. It'll just come back with 10. If you put, say, 20 items that you want to buy 20 common scraps, it'll simply give you the price for 20 scraps based on that pool. So it would actually use multiple sellers to fulfill your order. And it basically goes from cheapest star first, and then it goes up through the sellers. So it's really, really cool. Makes things a lot easier to track, because one of the problems I foresaw with the auction house is we're going to have literally millions of entries for stuff like that. I mean, how many people are going to be listing common scraps? It's going to be millions of entries at any one time. And that's going to be an absolute nightmare. You're going to have things disappearing literally every microsecond. People will be buying and selling stuff. So you might search for common scraps, and by the time you click on it to buy it, it'll be gone already, because there's a million people looking for that same thing at that time.
Well, that'll be a useful reenactment of buying BlizzCon tickets.
Exactly. Good. That's an excellent example.
It would give
So,
you practice.
yeah, exactly. So it's the way they've handled that is very, very good, and they've done the same thing with gold. So gold is pooled as well. you just put in as much gold as you want in increments of 1,000, which is also one of the things I wrote in the article, one of my predictions, because it would have been absolutely, it would have sucked if you had to browse through people's listings of, someone selling 5 gold, someone selling 10,537 gold. It just wouldn't make sense. It would make it very, very messy. So they've made it minimum 1,000 gold, and in increments of 1,000. So you can do 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, 100,000, whatever.
And is that for buyers or sellers or both?
For both. So
if you want to list gold for sale, you can only list it in increments of 1,000.
Exactly. And if you want to buy gold, you can only buy it in increments of 1,000, which 100% makes sense, because if they didn't do that, it would have been an absolute mess. I mean, you'd have to whip out a calculator every time you look for gold, because, if someone's selling 53,255 gold, you'd have to see how much that's actually giving you for your money. So it makes it a lot more uniform.
When you post your gold sale, you can specify the price you want to get for it.
Yes. So yeah, you specify the price you want to get for it in real money. So at the moment, I think on our website we've got the conversion rate at the moment. I think it's $1 buys 500 and something gold. So yeah, basically that means that the cheapest or the current market value of the gold is that rate. So $1 buys you 500 whatever gold.
But since this is, that doesn't really give us any predictive value for what gold's going to be in the full
Not
game.
At all.
We're playing with Bobby Bucks, and we're playing with, that's all free money, and then obviously there's much less gold capacity in the beta.
It should not be at all used as a prediction of how the game will play out, because it is absolutely inaccurate. We've got gold that you can't really spend it on. We've got nothing to spend gold on. We also have free money that we're using. A lot of people are just playing around buying anything. It is definitely not a reflection of what real value will be in the release. So do not mistake that for what it's going to be like, because it's going to be totally different.
It seems like you would get some weird interactions with the gold now, because say there's 5,000 gold listed at $500 at 500 gold per dollar. Just from different vendors. And then there's somebody else that has listed 10,000 gold at, 750 per dollar.
Yep.
And if you try to order 1,000 gold, you're going to get all those 500 cheap ones, and then you're going to get 500 of the next much higher price.
Yep, exactly. So what they've done,
it seems like you'd want to always, it seems like you'd always want to buy like 1,000 gold at a time to make sure you always got whatever the cheapest one was.
That's true. That's very true. But that's what it looks like in beta, because there's only a limited amount of people. But once you've got millions of people listing stuff, it's actually going to be more like, there'll be 1 million gold on the market at that same price. So you won't ever run into that problem, because if you buy 10,000 gold at a time, there's still 1 million left at that price, because there's so much volume on the markets, and the prices will be a lot tighter, because no one's going to list gold for double the price of the market value, because it's just not going to sell.
It would never sell. Because the automation of the listing, in WoW or something, you might get lucky where someone would just look at one auction and say, I guess I'll buy this gold.
Exactly.
But if they list everybody's auction at once,
you can't get away with it. No one can accidentally buy your overpriced gold.
That'll come in with items. Obviously there won't be 1 million of the same item. They'll all have different stats a little bit. Of course, that's going to be interesting. They've said they're going to have these very robust search algorithms.
Yeah, it's still
if you want to get your rare sword that's got IAS and life leech and X and Y and Z, it's going to be hard to sort it.
Yeah, the equipable items are going to be very, very tricky, because every equipable item has, let's compare, say, 2 swords, right? Same DPS. One might have 20 precision, one might have 19 attack. Now, because of the sheer amount of items on the market, the one with 19 attack might be a lot more expensive than the one with 20 precision. And it really, if someone's searching for an item, they might not even see the one with 19 attack that's cheaper, and they might just buy the more expensive one for double the price without realizing that, hang on, if I just looked at precision, I could have got the same item for much cheaper and just got extra crit instead of extra damage. And now times that by, 6 stats, there's going to be some insane amounts of price contradictions happening for equipable items. It's going to be very, very difficult. But the good news about that is it means that people who are very good at valuing items will actually make a lot of money, because these are the types of people who will be able to spot a bargain because of that inconsistency. They're going to take advantage of people not having a uniform price, and they're going to buy them and resell them for what they think it's worth. And if they're very skillful, they'll have a good perception on what things are actually valued at, and will be able to recognize the bargain and potentially make double the money off each transaction.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy the amount of people asking what my item is worth.
Yeah.
We have those trade value forums now that are really busy for Diablo 2.
Mm.
And imagine in Diablo 3 with all the new stuff and there's real money involved in this.
Yeah, and items are so much less, the difference between precision and attack is literally nothing. So they're both equally valuable. Whereas in Diablo 2, you could easily recognize an item being very good because, 90% of affixes sucked in Diablo 2. So
Yeah.
if you've got if you've got five affixes and they each fit in that 10% of good affixes, then you know that item is absolutely awesome. Whereas in Diablo 3, nearly every affix is awesome. So it's a question of perception, and yeah, it's going to be quite messy.
And obviously there'll be a learning curve for people to realize what's really good and
Exactly, it's going to be, yeah, and that's what I mean by the people who are very skillful in finding bargains, so to speak. People who can value items very well will be able to make a lot of money.
and manipulate the market, which is good if you're one of those people. And if you're somebody else, you might be a little pissed.
Yeah, exactly.
But even if that'll probably be like on the really high end. I mean, if you're just looking for, maybe there becomes this insane competition for the top 1% of items, and if you want to
Yeah.
get, an item in the 95th percentile, you can probably get a bargain on it, relatively
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah. It's a pretty fun mechanic, to be honest. Like, who doesn't like look and finding a bargain? In Diablo 2, I remember that a time when you'd go into your trade channels and you'd go into those trade games, and you'd find some idiot who's like happy to sell this awesome item, and he just wants something literally crappy for it. And that was really exciting and fun. It's like, oh wow, I just got an awesome bargain. This guy's an idiot.
No, it'd be the guy who had some mediocre item and thought it was like a win force.
Yeah, oh, you had that
It's
too.
like, it'd be some people who didn't play that much. Like I was playing hardcore, so that was really, high-end items were really rare to get.
Yeah,
And some guy would like find, I don't know, war travelers or something, like a pretty good but not great, and would think
yeah,
that was like the best thing he'd ever found.
exactly. And
'Cause,
he would like,
his highest character was like a level 47, and it was like,
and he would like laugh at your offer, even though it's like really good. He'd be
yeah, and
like,
it's like, well, dude, I've seen 100 of these, but I just don't have one right now, and you've got one, and I'm giving you something that's way rarer,
yeah.
but he didn't know that, so.
Yeah. I mean, I could see myself sitting there for an hour just browsing the auction house looking for that perfect sword. So I think it's pretty fun.
There's no automated tools at this point. You can't use a browser to like, watch the bar
Yeah.
graphs go up and down.
Yeah.
So how are you tracking activity? Are you talking to other people who are testing, or just looking at a lot of listings?
Basically, at the moment, we've obviously got very limited stats. We're at the moment in the process of expanding the amount of stats to a level where we plan to do at release. So we're just basically using the beta data. At the moment, we're just looking at currencies, but we're about to list commodities like common scraps and the other commodities that are currently available, fallen tooth and subtle essence and all that stuff. We're going to start reporting on those because basically, it's obviously not. We're not doing it because we want people want to see it. We're doing it to test our systems and what it's going to look like and all that stuff. So it's obviously the data and it's probably going to be all wrong. There's a minimum $1 fee, as you know. There's a minimum, $1 listing per item. So if you list one common scrap, you have to sell it for one beta buck, which is interesting. Obviously, there's no other way to sell it because there's no gold auction house. So obviously, one common scrap is not worth $1. So there's going to be funny figures like that, but we're just doing it as a test. So it's going to have, fallen tooth might be, three beta bucks or whatever. And the way we get those figures is we actually look at the listings. We update it multiple times a day. So we look at the current listings. We also take into account the average listings for the last 10 and the last day of listings. And we come up with a formula that gives us a pretty accurate figure. We're still in the process of tuning all that, of course. So I think we did some pretty big updates last night, actually, on the front page. We've made it look a lot prettier, and we're going to add commodities into it very soon.
And where can they find that?
Diablo3markets.com.
Oh, shiny. Have you been looking at the item sales? Are there any interesting prices going for big items? There's really no purpose, as we
Yeah.
discussed. There's really nothing to do with it. I mean, imagine if there was PvP. People were just going crazy for the best
Yeah.
item.
I kind of wish they did that. I kind of wish they had enabled some kind of dueling or PvP arenas for testing because that would have made at least would have given you a reason to master your characters. Because at the moment, like I said, we're basically taking gear off instead of upgrading our gear because it's so easy. And if they put PvP, you'd have everybody trying to twink up their characters as much as possible, and it would actually be quite fun. You'd go shopping
Yeah.
for awesome items.
There'd be an end game for the beta test.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
But
something.
have you been looking at items though? I mean, have you seen people selling anything for like $100 or any
I've
wacky
seen, yeah.
figures?
There's always wacky figures at the moment. Like crazy, stupid figures. I mean, people are selling white items for like $10, but obviously no one buys them. Again, it's
Which you can
because
find in 1 second of play. So
exactly. It's just at the moment the items that literally just like someone just vomited items all over the auction house and put random listings on it. So the items don't really paint a picture at all. And I mean, nothing really paints an accurate picture at all. It's just the interesting part is just seeing how the mechanics work in how gold's selling and all that stuff. And obviously we know there's an 80-cent fee for equipable items at the moment, which funnily enough is exactly what I predicted. That was purely a guess, so I don't, take too much credit for that. But 80 cents per item, so that means you wouldn't really want to list an equipable item for less than maybe $5 or something like that. It's just not worth it. So that's quite interesting. If they do keep the 80-cent fee, that'll obviously limit the amount of items on the auction house, which is good because we don't want to see millions of useless items on the auction house.
don't we expect those to go in the gold auction house?
Yep. So this is the part where we're kind of unsure of. At the moment, obviously, one common scrap is not worth $1, which is the minimum listing cost. So what I'm thinking that there's two ways they can handle this. One, they can allow for stackable selling, so you can sell instead of selling one common scrap, you sell 100 common scraps for $1. Or what I think they're going to do is they're going to make items like that. You should use the gold auction house for items like that. And then you could, of course, in turn, use the real money auction house to purchase gold. So basically, it's a bit like swapping your notes for change, if that makes sense. So, you might go to a shop that has selling things for $100. Obviously, you'd want to use cash for that. But then you might go to the 10-cent store or whatever, and then you want to swap your $5 note for a bunch of 10-cent coins. It's the kind of similar process. So you swap bigger money for the smaller currency, which is gold, and then you use that gold to buy the less pricey items. Because I think common scraps and scraps in general in the gold auction house are just a flat. I think it was 10% listing fee and 15% final value fee. So it's a different fee structure for the gold auction house as well.
Yeah, $1 for common scraps is you can't even really express how crazy that is in terms of how common they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even like a cheap, one of the better crafts in the beta is like 18 common scraps and like 9 magical and like 2 rare.
So it costs like $100.
Yeah, so just the materials for that one item is more than your entire Bobby Bucks supply at this point.
Yeah.
So that's just not even.
So
they have to put stacks of scraps for listings. I mean, that would just be such a pain to even set up your auctions. I mean, you'd never buy like less than 100 common scraps at one time.
Yeah, but keep in mind, you remember how I said they've changed the way you purchase and sell commodities. So you can actually, when you sell, say 10, you could put your stack of 100 common scraps on the UI for the selling, and it actually tells you how much do you want to sell, how many quantity you want to sell. So you say, okay, I want to sell 20 of them, and it asks you how much per item. So you might say, I want to sell it for 10 gold each, and I want to sell 20 of them. So it automatically puts your 20 items in the pool of commodities, in the pool of common scraps. So when you go to buy one, you don't actually have to buy them individually. You just say, okay, I want to buy 20, and it will automatically just buy 20 at that price. Mm-hmm. So it completely eliminates the need for stacks and things like that. So that part's not really an issue. So there's a whole pool of commodities, and there's no longer that whole separating stacks and things like that. It's all just one giant pool of items.
So it's quick to put up for sale and quick to purchase them as well.
Yep, very, very quick. So, yeah, like I said, instead of having 10,000 listings for common scraps, it's now one listing of a pooled quantity of common scraps, and you just specify how much you want, and then it automatically goes out and grabs the commodities from all the different people selling it and gives you whatever you want with one click, basically. So it's much, much more simplified. Very, very good system. I'm very happy with Blizzard's approach to this, because it's exactly what I would have done.
Obviously, there's features yet to be enabled and things that don't work right, but you seem... And how do the fees work on this? It's a 15-cent listing fee and 65 cents if you buy it, yes?
Yeah, for equipable items, the fee structures, as I said before, are different depending on what you're purchasing. So for items that you actually equip, so equipment they call it, it's 15-cent listing fee and a 65-cent final value fee. So it's a static fee. So it's 80 cents to sell equipable item if it sells, 15 cents if it doesn't sell.
And so all the fees go out of the lister?
Yes. So at the moment it's broken. At the moment
if you list something for $1, you're only making 20 cents right now.
Yes. So you would never ever list an equipable item for $1. It's stupid. You'd make 20 cents out of a $1 item. So like I said, I think what will happen is it will eliminate all items under the value of maybe, I don't know, up to $4 or $5 would be the kinds of things you would want to list. Otherwise, it becomes not worth it. And then you'd use the gold auction house to sell that sort of stuff.
And we're expecting, this is obviously a big issue, but we're expecting there's going to be a lot of interesting discrepancies between the auction houses in
Yep.
terms of the gold versus the real money. Like it'd be much
Definitely.
cheaper to buy, maybe it'd be much cheaper to buy common scraps for money, and then you could
Mhm.
then you could trade them for gold, and you'd get more gold than those were worth, etc. And
Yeah.
of course,
Particularly.
you have to play with the quantities and the listing fees and the percentage selling fees and
Yep.
everything.
Yep. The fees, because commodities use I think it's 15% flat fee on the gold auction, on the sorry, on both of them actually. I think it's a bit more expensive than the gold auction house. I think there's an extra fee on it. But regardless, basically you have to beat the fee to make money on it. So for example, say there's an item. Let's pretend that we fallen tooth because they cost maybe say $5, right?
The normal level rare craft, which is they're quite uncommon in the
Yeah,
beta at
yeah.
least.
So say that they cost $5 in the real money auction house, and then you hop over to the gold auction house, and it might cost, I don't know, 20,000 gold. Now, if the exchange rate is currently, maybe 5,000 gold per dollar, then that equals to $4 for that 20,000 gold item. So you can either buy it from the real money auction house for $5, or you can buy it for $4 in essence, which is 20,000 gold on the gold auction house, and you save $1. So those types of inconsistencies will definitely be prevalent in the game, and it won't, because like I said, commodities have changed now. You probably wouldn't list common scraps on the real money auction house because there's no way they're worth $1 because of the minimum listing cost.
Yeah.
So but you got things like the Inferno level legendary crafting materials. I mean, I'm sure they're going to cost at least $5 each or something like that. So those kinds of items will probably definitely see discrepancies between the real money auction house and the gold auction house when you put the exchange rate into account.
Are there going to be achievements for trading, do you think?
At the moment, obviously there isn't. Potentially, I mean, I'm just trying to think what kind of good achievements, what interesting achievements they could add. Probably something like, if you list 10,000 items or something, or 1,000 items, it might give you some trading, a merchant type achievement. Yeah, look, I could probably see that happening.
Well, we know the vast majority of achievements now you can't help but get. It's like killing 10 bosses. I mean, you
Yeah,
get that by level
you don't
5.
need to go out of your
can't
way.
not get it.
Yeah.
So you wonder if they'll have achievements just for, trading 10,000 worth of gold, trading 100,000 worth of gold.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the real question: will there be special achievements only for the real money auction house? And we have these people who are wildly opposed to it and say they will never ever use it. And you have people who are completists who absolutely must do every achievement in the game, no matter what, no matter how boring and pointless and stupid. So what happens when you get a real money auction house hater who's also an achievement completist, and there are achievements that are only available from real money trading? What will he do?
It's the classic clash of interests. That's going to be interesting. But
He'll
funnily
cancel
enough,
his subscription and go play Skyrim. That's what he'll do.
but the funny thing is, and this is, I'm probably going to cop a lot of flack for saying this, the type of people who are completionists are also the type of people who are happy to spend a lot of money on a game. They're the type of people who buy all the WoW mounts. You can buy those WoW mounts.
Well, you have to buy them to get them.
Yeah, so I
If
think
you
they're
wanna
the same
complete
people
that.
who are happy to the completionists in general are happy to spend a lot of money on their gaming experience. So it might be a rare thing, but then you got these, some people who are very morally opposed, not financially opposed to the real money auction house, and they just will refuse to use it. Then yeah, they're going to run into, they're never going to complete the game,
No
unfortunately.
achievements for them. Any big features coming up on the D3 Econ site or anything?
Yeah, we're actually in the process of adding a lot more stats. So at the moment, obviously, without a Diablo 3 economy, there's not much we can report on because it's useless. So we're just preparing our back-end systems to be able to give us really interesting stats. So we're ready for the game when it's released. But we are adding a few cool features on the website. We've already added a few now that will actually allow people to basically give a preview of what the website's going to give out when the real game comes out, so the type of statistics that they can expect. At the same time, though, it's definitely not complete, and there's a lot more stats. This is probably less than 2% of what we're going to do.
And speaking of when the game is going to be out, since you made accurate predictions about the real money auction house fees in the beta, when will Diablo 3 be released?
Definitely after February.
Is that 2012, by the way?
2015 actually. No, it should be. If I was to guess, I'd say in February we'll definitely know when it's coming out. It'll be one of those. You know how Blizzard have two types of release date announcements. One is just like
Yeah, late and later.
basically one is they give a ballpark like first quarter of 2020
Like early
or whatever.
2012.
Yep, exactly. And then when it's literally about a month or a month and a half out from release, they'll actually give a specific date, which in the past they have delayed. So, but typically they don't when they actually go to that point where it's about a month and a half away. But I'm not expecting to see a precise release date until about 1 or 2 months ahead of the actual release. So I think we'll probably get a release date. If we get one, hopefully we get one tomorrow when the cinematic comes out.
The Spike TV Awards thing.
Yep. I doubt it. What I think is going to happen, see, with obviously with movie previews or any kind of cinematic type preview, especially one that's on TV, usually at the end of the trailer, it's always got something like, coming, 12th of May, 2012 or whatever. I think they're going to have something like that, but I think they're going to say something like coming early 2012. So it's really going to
soon.
Yeah, it's going to basically give us nothing new, but I think they will definitely have some kind of date, or rather some kind of indicative time at the end of that trailer. Because again, it's at the end of a trailer, the first thing everyone's wondering is, oh, when's this coming out? You watch a movie preview, and if they don't tell you when it's coming out, it's kind of pointless. You always
like coming next year. It's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think we will get something like that, but I think it's going to be a generic date, like early 2012 or coming 2012 or something like that.
I don't think we'll get a release date tomorrow either, but I guess we'll find out. Of course, by the time this podcast, we're not going to post this till Monday, so people will already know. But we will either seem brilliant or clueless.
Well, we said both, so we're kind of covered either way.
Yeah, I can just wait and edit this afterwards, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's just do two takes here. You can say no way and then yes way. No, that would be wrong. That would be cheating. Okay, Azzure, thanks for your time.
No problems. Thanks for having me.
You guys have been listening to the Diablo podcast, and we are online at diablopodcast.com. And Azzure's site is located at
Diablo3markets.com.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Secret unicorn level.
Ooh.